Well, good morning and welcome to Google Domination episode 7. I believe we've called this one Google Forms Are Not the Norm because it's so much more than, say, SurveyMonkey or something like that. So, I'm going to be sure that I'm unmuted here. So give me just 1 second. Looks like I am unmuted. So I'm hoping that you're hearing me. So I'm going to take my reminder down here because I definitely messed that up previously. Okay, so let's talk about Google Forms. One of the first things that we'll do is we will go and search for a form. I always start everything out in Google Drive. So we're going to transition here. So I always start everything out in Google Drive, and often I will just make a form up and use it for training. So what I want to do, and I already have my results up here, but what I want to do is I'm going to use my search function, and I'm going to only search my Google Drive for forms, and I'm going to use item name has the word training in it, and I'll hit search. And so if I've made a form for training, such as this one right here that's selected on my screen, I could go and use that form. And I'm not going to mess up one of my live forms. A lot of times what I will do, especially if I'm doing training and I have live forms, I'm going to go up here and change the title to something called Master, because this really makes a big difference on ensuring that you don't mess up one of your forms that you have somewhere out in the interwebs and mess something up. So that's why I mark things training and I mark things master. When you have other people who are, when you have other people who are working on your stuff, and maybe they're not as familiar with Google Drive as you'd like for them to be. Sometimes they make multiple copies of something rather than working on the actual live document. So that's why we have gotten in the habit of marking things master for things that we use out on the web. So let me do some things over here in my production suite. Okay. So this is a copy of a semester final that I used to use. I just upgraded this to the new forms. It looked like the old forms. So I've been using Google Forms since I probably made this one my second year of teaching, which would have been about 2008, so about 10 or 11 years. And a lot of things have changed. So it's always been sending your responses to a spreadsheet, and so it's always been able to do that, but there are several new things now that it will do, and this is a copy of a copy, so there aren't going to be any responses. So this is basically like I built a brand new form. So let me just go ahead and change the title of this form, because the title of the form is going to determine the title of your response spreadsheet. So I'm going to make this into training. And so now, if I wanted to add this to my drive, I could do that. Now, if I had created this form from Drive, I wouldn't need to. But anytime you see this little Drive symbol right here, and you see a plus symbol, that means you can add it to your drive. Of course, you can always star it, and so that makes it one of your favorites. So that means when I go over here to Drive and I go to Starred, then it will show up right down here in this list. So that's kind of a nice thing. I keep several things here starred, like my bill spreadsheet, so that I can access that pretty quickly and easily. So, using that favorites and having a kind of a short list is a really nice thing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of go across the top right here and talk about the things that we have in Forms. As always, Google saves everything for you, so you never have to hit save unless you're working on a script. That's the only time that you ever have to save something. And it's more of like a publish it live because it saves your draft for you all the time. This little paint board is where you can change your theme. So you could, instead of having this big orange section up here at the top, you could choose image for your header, and you can search for an image, you can upload an image. They have things for you, which is kind of nice. So rather than doing, just a normal, quote unquote, normal picture, you could choose some of these things right here. You can also upload your own photos, or you can pick things from your album. So that's kind of cool. The Work in School one is pretty nice. They have several nice looking things. It just gives your form a little bit of flair. But I have a tendency just to use colors, and I tend to use the color of the school, or at least something close to it. And you can add custom colors right here. So when this was created, it was created for Putnam City, and when I was teaching at Putnam City High School, and their primary color was orange, their secondary color was black. So I just made this one orange, and it always makes the background color this really pale color. Why did that change to purple? It makes it this pale color, but I don't like that, so I always tend to go with this gray over here, and things are working a little slow, so I apologize for the lag. Okay, so this is a form that is used as a quiz. Oh, I'm getting off topic. Sorry. So that's where your themes are, and if you want to preview your form, this is where you could go to preview your form. Now, if you're sending this form out, you are not sending this link right here that's in the address bar. You would go to preview the form. If I open that preview window up, it opens a new tab, and this is my actual form. Notice the difference between this, where I can go down and click on these and edit the questions, versus here where I come down here and click something and I'm answering it. So never ever send a form from this screen. Now you can use this send form right here, and it'll open Gmail, and you can do that. But I prefer just to go over here and get this link. So if you can see that really tiny in the address bar, you'll see that the last bit of the address says view form, whereas this one, the address has the words edit right next to the end right there. So you really want to be careful about what address you send out to people for your form. So that's something to think about. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave this site. It wants me to keep working on that. So now I'm going to go here to my form settings. And so the form settings, if you're doing something within a domain, or people have Google addresses, you can simply click collect email addresses, and that way you'll know who submitted the form, or at least you'll know whose account submitted the form. You can provide response receipts, and so you have options here. I don't necessarily do that, but that's a nice option if people want to keep a record of what they answered on a form. You can restrict this to your domain. I would recommend restricting something to your domain, especially a test, because you want to be sure that students are signed into their school account rather than being signed in to their personal Gmail or something like that. And this is a really nice one because it will only allow them to respond once. And then you have some options down here. Do you want them to be able to edit their submission? They'll basically come back to the form. Do you want them to be able to see what everyone else did after they submit? Which that's kind of a nice thing. Maybe not for a quiz, but that might be a nice option if you're getting opinions from people, so people can see what else other people responded with. So I am going to save, I'm not going to save that yet. And so presentation on the quiz. Now, because this is a quiz, I might want to show a progress bar, and I might want to shuffle the question order, because if I have two students sitting side by side, I'd prefer that they are not having questions in the same order, as they could go right through the quiz together. In your responses, by the way, if you're concerned about cheating, you can go and compare timestamps on your spreadsheet, and you can see when students submit. So that's kind of a nice way. If people submit within a second or two of one another, and you're already had a concern about cheating between those two students, maybe they answered everything exactly the same, that's one little piece of evidence that you could use in your investigation. And then additionally, right here, you can change the confirmation message. Normally it's going to say, thank you for using Google Forms, your responses have been submitted. Well, this was a final exam for the first semester, so I wanted students to feel good and know that they have finished their first semester of physics. So I changed that confirmation message. Now, here's the really nice thing that used to not be this way. This is a new thing, probably in the last year or two, but for sure it's new since this was made. So you can actually make this a quiz. You can choose when to release the grade. This is kind of a nice thing because this gives you the opportunity to do a manual review. You can allow them to see or not allow them to see all of these things. And now if I click save, I'm going to get some new options on my questions, because now I go down here to the answer key for this question, and I can choose how many points everything is worth, and I can choose which answer is correct. And same thing on this one. I just continue clicking the next question, whether it's required or not, and go from there. Oops, skipped a question. This thing is really dragging for some reason. Live streaming really taxes a computer, and I probably should be doing this on an iMac rather than on a laptop, but it is what it is. So we would do this. We would select that as the, oops, I guess I have to click answer key on every one of them. False. And this is worth a point, and so on. And so notice here at the top, it's giving you how many points your quiz is worth, how many total points your quiz is worth. And so you'd keep going on, and you could give answer feedback. So if you clicked add answer feedback for incorrect answers, this is what the feedback is that they get for correct answers, which is really handy because think about, we used to have those times when we would give students a graded test, and then we would go over it and say, okay, if you answered this incorrectly, here's why this is the correct answer. Whereas here with Google, we can go ahead and put that same amount of time into setting this quiz up, and then you never have to go back and tell students. This is very, very good immediate feedback for students. This is especially important on formative quizzes, formative assessments, quizzes and things like that, because you want students to know why they got the incorrect answer on that. You might link them, give them a link to information that says, hey, check this out. Here's a review of this topic, for an incorrect answer. Or you might give a little video showing why the ball goes further when it's thrown at a 45-degree angle than why it's not thrown as far when it's thrown horizontally, something like that. So that would be something that I would probably do in this case, is, put a video right there. So you can do answer feedback on every single question. And so you can go through and do that on all of your questions, do your answer key, And then when you get down here into multiple choice, maybe these are going to be worth more points, and so on. So you can set your quiz up that way. Over here on the side, notice that you have places where you can add images, you can add video, you can add text statements, title and description. For instance, this right here, for the multiple choice part, I have a description and some directions, which best completes the statement or best answers the question. Which means when I'm giving an assessment, there might be 2 correct answers, but I want students to choose the best answer. So maybe they get an answer close to one or the other of these answers, 4 meters or 5 meters, and I want them to choose the best answer. So anyway, lots of options that you have there. You can put dividers in, you can add questions, and so on. So that's how you would do that if you were using this as a quiz. And so you can see here, this shows you your answer key as you go and how many points. And so you can set every question up like that. Okay? Let's see, what else do we need to do here? Under the More button, remember there's always if you look for the syrup drops, there's always good stuff behind there. If you look for a waffle or the pancakes, there's always good stuff there as well. So you can certainly undo, you can make a copy of this entire form, you can put it in the trash, you can get a pre-filled link. So one of the things that we do, let me switch over to my other camera here while I just talk for a minute. So one of the things that we do here in the education department is we have admission interviews. And we use Google Forms to evaluate that admission interview, which triggers a couple of other events. The student gets an email, it creates a portfolio for them, it transcripts the entire interview and puts it into their folder and things like that. But we don't want to go in and fill that form out. There's a lot of information that goes into that form that is that's just accounting. It's just housekeeping. Like, what's their GPA? That goes on the form. Which of these courses have they already taken? There's a list of courses. That goes on the form. Well, we have limited time in that admission interview, so we don't spend time filling that other stuff out. So getting a pre-filled link means that you can actually go and it opens the live form, and so let me just click get pre-filled link and we'll pretend like this is, so it's opened my form for me, and it cannot pre-fill an email address. That means that the email address will come in when it's actually being filled out. And so maybe you go in, so it's telling me down here, pre-fill your responses and then click get link. So I would go in and I would mark all of the courses from the list of courses the student has taken. I would mark who their advisor is, type in their GPA, have they done their proficiency for foreign language, all of those kinds of housekeeping, accounting things that we want as a part of that admissions interview. Oh, sorry, you're not seeing this. So notice down here at the bottom it says pre-fill your responses and then click get link. I really need somebody else here producing this for me. Producing your own video webcast or podcast or whatever you want to call it that I'm doing right here, webinar, is difficult when you're the one giving it and you're producing at the same time. So that's a side note. So I'd go in, I would pre-fill this, and then I would go all the way to the bottom after I've filled in the questions that I want to fill in. This was a pretty significant test. And I would click get link. So once I have done that, I click get link. And so now this is the link that I would use. So share this link to include pre-filled responses. So I would click copy link, and it's been copied to my clipboard. And now I can put that into a spreadsheet, make the student's name in that spreadsheet a link, And then for the interviewers, they have the spreadsheet. They simply go in and click on the student's name, and it opens the form pre-filled with the student's name, the courses they've taken, their GPA, whether their proficiencies met on foreign language, all of those things, and all the interviewers have to fill out is the assessment, target, acceptable, unacceptable, as they go through the interview. So it's a time saver. That would be a way that you could use that. I'm sure there are a million other ways to use a pre-filled link, but I just wanted you to see a time that you would use a pre-filled link. So when you click here on the SERP, that's why you would have Get Pre-Filled Link right here on the menu. Adding collaborators. So if you wanted multiple people to, you're on a team or something, and you're on the 4th grade team, and y'all are all making a single final exam. The English teacher needs to add her questions, the math teacher needs to add her questions, social studies and science and so on. You all add it. It's collaborative, just like everything else that Google Drive does. It's all collaborative. Okay. There are add-ons, just like I showed you add-ons in Google Docs and Google Sheets, especially add-ons. So we could look and see what are some add-ons that we could use here for Google Forms. And form notifications is a nice one. It allows you to set up a notification that the form has been submitted. It's basically a script that someone has written. You would maybe say you want your administrative assistant to get notified when a form is submitted. No problem. You install that add-on and it would go there. You could also do that on the spreadsheet without this add-on. So without being too deep and confusing, there's always a way to do pretty much whatever you would want to do as far as notifications or anything like that. Form Recycler, that's probably a pretty good one from other forms in your drive. So you could pull, especially if you're making quizzes and then you're going to make an exam from those test questions, this would be something that would be really good for you because it's going to allow you to pull questions in from those quizzes. So that's a really nice one. I like that one. Okay, I'm not going to look at all of these add-ons, but you need to know that they're here. Now, the one other thing that I want to mention here on the SERP menu is the script editor. So if I open the script editor, all of those add-ons are script editors, are scripts running in the background. Okay, so if you wanted to customize and do exactly what you want to do from this form, this is where you would do it. Now you've got to know a little bit of JavaScript, and I don't recommend this for beginners, but I do recommend learning it because we have effectively built here at SNU, using Google Forms, we've built an entire assessment website with several Google Forms. So let me go to that and I'll just show you what this looks like. So for our assessment of our student teachers, everybody that's in the education preparation program, here is our admissions interview. Now we're not going to go here. Pam is going to create a link where this first page is pretty much filled out, and we're going to start with this question where these are the people who would be interviewing students. So we would get a pre-filled link. But whenever we're grading a conceptual framework, here is the assessment for our conceptual framework. And so when our faculty work on grading the conceptual framework essays, they do one at the beginning of the program, one at the end of the program. These forms automatically put a transcript of the form into the student's portfolio. That admissions interview form creates a portfolio for them. And so all of these things here are forms that we use to assess our students. But there's a lot of background stuff that goes on, scripts that I've written in JavaScript that work behind the response spreadsheets from these forms. So let's go over to our responses tab and I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So I click on view responses in sheets. Oh, this is where you turn your form on and off. If you turn this off, for instance, you might write a script that says at this time, turn the form on. So on this specific date, when the date is equal to this, turn accepting responses on. And you tell your students, this is going to be ready for you at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning. And so rather than you having to remember to come in and turn this on at exactly 10 o'clock, you could come over here and you could open your script editor, and there's a way that you would, it'd probably be 8 or 9 lines of code at most, and it would turn your form on, and then you would also have a script that would turn your form back off. So the form would be available, the quiz, the exam would be available for a specific amount of time. So that's one thing that you could do with the script editor. There may be an add-on already that somebody has done. If there's not, then you could write it and submit it to Google, and it would be an add-on attributed to you. So maybe I'll do that. Okay, so here is where we select our response destination. And if that's not working, you go right over here and you click on this and you say select response destination. If you get an error message like I just did, this is where you could get email notifications for new responses. Now that is only going to send emails to yourself. That is not going to send emails to someone else. It's not going to allow you to put in another email, referring back to the add-on that I talked about. This is where you select where the spreadsheet is. You can actually have this form go to create a new spreadsheet, or maybe you want it to go to a specific spreadsheet. So let's say that you have a spreadsheet and you're using it for all of the assessment for fall of 18 for a specific class. So this particular exam, when I click response destination, it's either going to create a new spreadsheet or it's going to go to an existing spreadsheet. And if I do this, then the next step is going to open up my spreadsheets, my list of spreadsheets, and it's going to send all of the responses. So I actually don't want to do that. I want to cancel out of that because I want it to create a new spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet was trashed, so we're going to create a new spreadsheet. So now this is linking to spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is linked, and if I click on this right here, it will open up the spreadsheet that it's linked to. And so you can see there at the top, the first row is frozen, and that is all of the questions, all of the data. That's basically the key to your form. All of your responses are going to come in on these subsequent rows down here. So what I like to do is I like to select that first row, and I like to change the font size to something a bit smaller, and I like to wrap the text where I can see the entire question, and we'll go from there. And it is being really slow. Now notice that my spreadsheet is shared with everyone in the world, and I would never want that to be the case. I would want to take that and I would want to change it to only specific people, because this is quizzes. This is a quiz. I'm going to have students' names or email addresses here to violate FERPA. I do not want anyone to see that other than me. Oh, shared with Steve Stark. So this is from my old Putnam City days, for sure. So it's still shared with the people it should be shared with. That's kind of funny. Okay, so there's all my questions. So there is a tools right here where you can go to notification rules, and that is where you can, this is where it's notifying me. I was thinking you could enter a new email address, but you could go to add-ons and do that same notification rules, or you could come here to tools and you have the script editor and you can go from there as well. So let's go back to the form and have a look. We're just going to wrap up here pretty shortly because there is, I mean, I could talk about forms for a long time, but a lot of what I would talk more about forms would be in the actual spreadsheet. And if you want to know information about the spreadsheet, you want to go back over to my episode, which was episode 2 or 3 about spreadsheets. I will just mention that there is now a form menu because this is connected to a form. And I normally don't go to the form to edit it. I usually open the spreadsheet first, and then if I want to change something, I'll go to edit form here under my form menu. And I could send the form, I could go to my live form, put it in a web page, show summary of responses, or I could unlink it from this spreadsheet. So those are all things that you can also do here. Well, one of those things where you can unload it, unlink the form. You can download everything as a CSV, so it will, instead of having this over here and downloading this as a CSV, if you wanted to just send your responses to someone to look at, you could send that right here. You could print everything, you can delete everything. Now, if you delete all responses, that does not do anything to your spreadsheet. That keeps your responses over here, but it actually it clears out the form. So right now I don't have any responses, and it would go back to 0. I have forms that have been submitted thousands of times, and that can get a little bit clunky. So occasionally I'll go in and clean responses out if we don't have to save them for a certain amount of time, because I've found that it can cause a form to run a little bit slower. So that's just me. Okay, that will just about wrap that up. I want to look at a training form that I have that has some responses. So let's go over here and let me search for training again. Actually, let me just go back. And let me pull up, let me keep going back because I want training. There we go. Training, electronic portfolio, there we go. That's one I want because I believe I have some responses here. Yeah, let's try this one. So let's go to, actually let's just open that up and see if I have responses on it. Don't know that I do. I really want to show you a form so you can see what the responses look like in the form itself. And I don't have any responses on that one either. Well, shoot. Okay, let me open this. Is an old form of Michelle's. And let me see if this will let me see this is probably going to make me change over to the new forms, but I'm going to tell it that I really don't want to. Okay, so not now. Well, oh, I have 0 responses on that also, so never mind. Well, I don't have a form that I really am comfortable showing you unless I just go to my drive and see if I have a form that I would be comfortable showing you. You know what? I don't. I would rather you not see this and me not violate FERPA. So your responses would show here, and you would have you would be able to look at every individual response, but you would also see an aggregate response on all of your questions. So you're going to probably have, say on a multiple choice question, you would end up with, on the screen, you would see a pie chart with that question, and it would show you the percentage of responses for each of your answers that were available on the question. For names, it's going to show you like a bar graph, and there's going to be one response for each name or something like that if you've limited it to one response. That's not really valuable, but it is helpful when you're using this as a quiz to see overall, on this question, maybe after the first 2 times you give a test, overall, I see on this question, I need to focus on this concept more. So using Google Forms as a way to collect data on your instruction and see where do you need to focus, especially if after you've had this same form or same quiz or exam or whatever, and you've used that for multiple semesters, it's going to be really valuable to see in your instruction where are the places that you need to focus. What are the concepts that students really struggle with? If 4 semesters nobody gets the right answer on whether or not a ball is thrown horizontally being the furthest it would go, then I know that I need to work on that. It's a misconception that most students have, and I need to work harder on that particular question or concept. So lots of valuable things here. I hope this has been something that will help you at least get started with Google Forms and collecting data. I have seen this used as a discipline piece where teachers had the form up on their phone and they would just take a student's name and mark a demerit, type in what happened, where it was located, and we set up a quick script that would send an email to their homeroom teacher, because that's who manages the discipline for that individual student. I've seen this used as exams. I've seen it used as quizzes, collecting information on what's the best time of day to do something or best day of the week. So like as quote unquote a doodle poll, that's a website where you can collect times. Not saying that Google Forms is the best for everything, but you can accomplish everything that SurveyMonkey can do, that Doodle Poll can do, and so on. There are just a lot of things that Google Forms can do as far as collecting data from stakeholders or whatever. So I hope this has been a good introduction for you and maybe a slightly deeper dive than just saying, okay, go and put some questions on there. But if you have questions about anything, you're always welcome to email me at jodybowie@gmail.com. That's Jody with a Y and Bowie with an IE. And ask me questions about anything that you've seen today. Head over to the googledomination.org website and check out the other episodes that we have there on the other Google tools that are available for you. So you guys have a great rest of the week, and we will talk to you later. See ya.